Good morning. So I wasn't here yesterday, and I want to tell you why. This is why. Last night in Tyler, Texas, we put on a live storytelling show where we had 10 amazing storytellers who we've been working with for months tell stories that in some way, big or small, related to Tyler and East Texas's greatest challenges and greatest opportunities. You look at this lineup here, and that looks like Tyler. I don't know if I've ever seen a group of people on stage that look like Tyler. That was intentional, that was baked into our mission. I'm happy to say that we sold out this show. 300 people came to the Downtown Civic Theater in Tyler, Texas. Our audience looked a lot more like Tyler. Thank you, thank you. Our audience looked a lot more like Tyler than audiences I'm used to seeing, and I'm happy to say we made money on this deal through ticket revenue and through sponsorships, so that was really exciting. Now I'm gonna get into my real thing. And Mallory, I might need your help doing that. I've got a lot to cover, but I'm from Philadelphia, so I can talk fast. And when I got to East Texas, I learned to slow it down just a little bit. But so my name is Tasneem Raja, and I am the, do I need to, okay, great. Do I need to move that off the screen? I'm the editor-in-chief and the co-founder of the Tyler Loop. So the Tyler Loop launched in 2017. We are nonprofit, we are member supported. And this project is really different from anything I've done in my career. Before I got to Tyler, I was in Washington, D.C. as a senior editor at NPR's Code Switch. Before that, I was a senior editor at Mother Jones Magazine in San Francisco doing as a data editor. And life brought me to Tyler, family brought me to Tyler. And I have to just tell you, I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my career doing this project. So I want to talk about how the Tyler Loop is redefining what's possible in the capital of East Texas. Tyler, Texas? What is that? We are a community of 120,000, more like 250,000 during the day, because Tyler is a jobs magnet. We are booming in healthcare and education. If anybody knows anything about East Texas, they've heard of us as like an oil and gas mecca. That's not really what's happening today. Tyler is a majority minority community. It is a quarter Black, quarter Latino, half white, and our Latino population is growing incredibly quickly. Really important to understand, we are not cowboy country. We are more like a little bit of Old South, a little bit of Bayou culture, and then really just its own kind of piney woods pragmatism that I have come to really enjoy and feel at home in. So 101 launched in 2017. I started my career in alt weeklies, the Philadelphia Weekly and the Chicago Reader, so I've always brought kind of an alt weekly vibe to what I'm doing. We cover what I call policy, potential, and possibilities in the Tyler Metro. We're a nonprofit membership program, and our idea is to inform local ideas about what is possible. Because for a long time, there's just been a single story about what's possible, and we know from the conversations we have with a lot of people you don't get to hear enough from, that there are actually a lot of stories to cover. We are a staff of one, hello, and as I said, I have a national and local journo background, which really has been incredibly useful in kind of thinking about what's happening on the ground and then like what's the big picture that I can import to East Texas in a way that nobody else is really gonna do. I think of what we do as slow-baked, small-batch journalism, which means, as Jim was saying, less is more. So I'm going to talk about 5 problems that I started to notice when I got on the ground in Tyler, and then I'm going to talk about 5 solutions that we've come up with to try and address those problems, not just for our own journalism, but for our community. So, like I said, outdated perceptions about what is possible in Tyler. Idea that, you know, if you're not old guard, old money, white, you can't have a voice. The idea that Tyler, which currently is deeply segregated. As I said, we are deeply diverse, but deeply segregated. The idea that that's just how it's been, that's the way it's always going to be, and there's nothing you can do about it. So how did we try to address that problem? Through data-driven reporting on civic and demographic change. We have found that when you talk about difficult issues, starting with data just sort of helps neutralize the issue. As you know, I'm sure many of you are familiar with that concept. And so we started doing stories that just got at some of these widespread misperceptions. So for instance, is Tyler's economy really tied to oil booms and busts? So let's look at the data. We find that oil and gas is way down the list in terms of the economic drivers in our community. Tyler is getting younger. This blew people's minds. I've had 2 business owners tell me that they included this story in their business plans when they were looking for investment in businesses that were aimed at younger market, saying, you don't know this, but the data shows that Tyler is getting younger faster than almost any city in Tyler. This was like the talk of the town when we published it. And as I said, we're a majority minority city. And again, this was just like, some people sensed that this was happening, but nobody had ever really put it in numbers like this before. And this story just spread like wildfire. So another problem, you can't talk about that here. The idea that there were topics, there were problems, there were conversations that you couldn't have in Tyler, because if you did, you would get a brick thrown through your window. You would lose your job. I mean, this place, a lot of people talk about Tyler as in a bubble, and they talk about, Tyler's kind of stuck in the 1950s in terms of social mores and, progress. Well, it just depends on who you talk to. And so we said, okay, we keep hearing you can't talk about that here. What happens if we do talk about it? The solutions: first-person storytelling. Remove myself from the equation, right? I'm a transplant. There's a very, very small Asian population in Tyler, so I just felt like, let me try to amplify other people's voices and help people just hear from their neighbors directly instead of me getting in the way. Unflinching inclusion. So when we do stories that reflect what's going on in marginalized communities, we don't do that in a way that feels apologetic, or we just go and do it. Defang the story. This is something a reader said to me. He said, your stories just have this way of defanging the biting, national narratives. They just have a way of removing the poison, but they keep what's important. And that just felt so good to me. So for instance, Out of the Loop, the storytelling show that I talked about last night, where we had stories about identity, inclusion, difference, and the audience was there for it. You felt it in the room. First-person storytelling. We did a series of profiles with undocumented East Texans where I just sat down, I turned on my recorder, I said, go. Just tell me your story. And we ran these as 3,000-word as told tos on our site. The time on page for these stories was 3.5 minutes. That was really cool to see. People were reading. Talking about issues like climate change, but doing it in a language that's going to make sense for the community that we're covering. Again, defang the issue. And finally, unflinching inclusion. We actually have the largest public high school still named for Robert E. Lee. Oh, I just lost my signal, Mallory. I'm not sure if you can help with that. Okay, great. So we still have the largest public high school in America that is named for Robert E. Lee, and this was a huge fight in our community. So we said, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just cover this. And we know this is a very, very heated issue, but we're going to do it in an unflinching manner. And we have gotten so many amazing messages from people in our community saying, you changed my mind on this issue, and that felt really good to me. And we got a grant from the Solutions Journalism Network to do this story that taught a lot of people about a community that is a lot bigger in our region than anybody realized. The Tyler Transgender Support Group has 300 members. There are 30 to 50 people who show up to their monthly meetings. This was just changing our perceptions, again, of what is possible in our community and what is already happening in our community. Another problem, as I said, deeply entrenched segregation. I mean, I have lived in Chicago, Washington, D.C., Oakland, California. I have never seen surgical segregation of the kind that I see. It is precise in Tyler. So the idea is, you don't go north of Front Street. You don't go east of Fifth Street. How do we get at this? Proactive relationships, border crossing events, and make inclusion a habit. This is a sheet of paper that resulted from my going to a community program called Getting Ahead. Getting Ahead is a national program that somebody brought to Tyler, works with under-resourced individuals to help build life skills. And I just said, hey, can I come talk to your group? And can I do this like audience survey thing that I do? And then I just got everybody's number. And I said, you know, of all the stuff we talked about, tell me like what things you're interested in helping me with. So people said things like, you talked about, you know, how can we get more diversity at community meetings? How can we get more affordable housing? I want to help with your journalism. So go, like, get up, go to communities and be proactive about your relationship building. We went on a taco tour of Tyler. Our taquerias are some of our fastest growing restaurants in our community, but they are mostly concentrated in one part of the city. So we said, we're just going to go on a taco tour of Tyler. Who's coming? And I thought like 12 people were going to email me and say, I'll go on this weird thing you're doing. I got 100 emails. And they got it. They understood that this wasn't just about carne asada. This was about crossing borders in our community. Their emails, the language that they used reflected that. That was so exciting to me. And don't just do, when you do stories with people who don't look like the majority population in Tyler, don't just do stories about what's not working. Don't just do stories about when something goes wrong. Do stories about people who are leading successful businesses, who are just living life, having careers. This story radically changed the makeup of my email database. You just do a story about the amazing Michael McClendon, who's this winemaker. He was actually one of our storytellers last night. And suddenly, my Facebook following, my email following, looks different. It's simple, right? Okay, problem. Oh, okay, all right. I'm gonna skip ahead just a little bit since I need to do that. Oh, okay, all right. I'm sorry, Rosenthal, I can't do it. The people are asking. Real quick. Philly. Okay, widespread community distance or distrust of or distance from local media. So, audience-driven reporting. I have a database. Of course, I know about amazing projects like Harkin. They are informing my work here. But before I go and use a new tool, let's just start testing out me emailing people saying, ask me questions. I've got this database of 120 questions that the community has given me. And going to the Getting Ahead program is what changed the nature of my database to where now I have a lot more questions about childcare, utility assistance, rent assistance. When I get the questions, I answer them. And I do it FAQ style. And this has been just so popular. And I think it opens up collaboration possibilities with other local outlets in town. And then finally, no one was telling the deeper story. This was a big problem. Slow, small batch journalism, use the newsletter to become the destination for local news context. So how's it working? We have over 100 monthly members. We only launched the membership program a few months ago. I've published 100 stories in 2 years. I have 6,000 combined followers between all of my platforms, 2 recurring event series. Reader feedback is like heart eye emoji, like all over the place. I love what people say. I love the language that they use when they talk about what we're doing. Problem going forward, sustainability, duh. How to solve this problem? Okay, will Tyler's seasoned philanthropists, we have a deep, deep philanthropic tradition in Tyler, but will they support the operations of a new kind of local journalism? So how do I start getting at that? I invite them to my storytelling show, right? Like, journalism isn't always a language I use. I often use words like storytelling or like, we care about Tyler, and language like that. Can a boost of national funding turbocharge our revenue building capacity? That's a big unanswered question. Can events grow memberships and sponsorships and lighten my editorial load? So can I flip it on its head to where I start with an event and a conversation instead of, I just build events and I build moderated conversations into my reporting life cycle and maybe at the beginning of my reporting life cycle. How long can I remain a quasi-volunteer? That is what I am. I am a deeply paid quasi-volunteer. And Rosenthal is saying, thank you, and I did it. Thank you.